Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a really powerful philosophy on commitment and change, and it comes from the life of, you guessed it, Matthew McConaughey. It all boils down to some pretty simple but truly profound advice.
Yeah, it all kicks off with these four words. But this wasn't just some casual suggestion. This was a responsibility, a torch being passed from a father to a son, right at a moment that would literally change everything for him.
So let's get into the story behind this because it's a great one. You see, it all goes back to this one phone call where a young McConaughey has to break the news to his dad that he's ditching law school to go chase this wild dream of film school. He timed the call just right, a Tuesday night, after dinner, when his dad would be kicked back and relaxed. But the real key here, it was how he said it. He didn't ask. He told him. He laid out his case with so much conviction that his dad heard a fact, not a question. And that is what got him that incredible response.
And you gotta understand, this part is so crucial. His dad wasn't just patting him on the back saying, "Hey, go for it, kid." No, he was saying, "Look, if you're gonna do this, you finish it. You see it all the way through." So the permission he got, it was completely tied to the weight of this new responsibility.
And what's so wild is how this new sense of duty got put to the test, like immediately, and in the most unexpected way possible, which, believe it or not, gave birth to one of the most iconic characters of the 90s. Okay, so picture this. It all kicks off with this random meeting with a casting director in a bar. A few hours later, boom, McConaughey's got a tiny part in Dazed and Confused. He shows up on set thinking, all right, just a wardrobe test. But nope, he was about to get thrown right into the deep end. The director, the legendary Richard Linklater, just turns to him and says, basically, okay, you're up, improvise a scene. Right then and there, no lines, nothing. McConaughey had to become this character, Wooderson, like instantly. So what does he do? He asks himself this one simple question: what does my man love? All right, first things first, he's sitting in his 70s Chevelle. Check. That's one thing he's got going for him.
Okay, number two, he's got Ted Nugent's Stranglehold absolutely blasting on the 8-track. Love it. That's two.
And number three, his buddy Slater is right there in the passenger seat, joint rolled up and ready to go. That's 3 for 3. And boom, there you have it. The director yells action, and he just channels those three things he already has, right? On his way to get a fourth thing, the girl. So you've got 3 points of gratitude, 3 affirmations, which led to the first 3 words he ever said on screen.
So, going all in on that moment, on that character, it led to huge success. But as you can probably guess, it also created a brand new problem. He was trapped in the gilded cage of being a typecast movie star.
I mean, he became the guy for romantic comedies, right? The undisputed rom-com king. And look, the niche was comfortable, it was super profitable, the paychecks were great, but the work itself, it just wasn't feeding that principle his dad gave him. He was, in a way, half-assing it, even while being incredibly successful. And that leads to this huge question, right? What do you do when not half-assing it leads you to a place you don't even want to be anymore? This question, this was everything. It became the very core of his reinvention, forcing him to take his father's advice and apply it in the most extreme way yet. Which brings us to the next chapter, the Great Reinvention. This was the ultimate test of his whole philosophy, committing 100% to doing absolutely nothing at all so he could become someone new. And I mean, he vanished for 20 long months. He just disappeared. He turned down every single rom-com script that landed on his desk. He even turned down one insane offer. We're talking $14.5 million. He was fully committed to being invisible. And you can see how this played out. After about a year of saying no, Hollywood just stopped calling. His own agent told him his name hadn't even come up for months. He had done it. He had successfully made himself irrelevant. Which sounds crazy, right? But it was a totally necessary step for the comeback he wanted. Think about what he was doing here. He was willingly trading this known, super comfortable identity, the rom-com king, for a future that was completely undefined and way, way riskier. He wasn't just turning down parts. He was betting his entire career on a version of himself that didn't even exist yet. But that absence, it created a vacuum. It actually forced the entire industry to forget who he was so they could finally see who he could be. And sure enough, after those 20 months, the phone starts to ring again. But this time, This time it was for the kind of roles he'd been dreaming of. Okay, so the final piece of this whole puzzle, this McConaughey method, isn't just about how to get through a crisis. It's about how to understand your own success. And this brings us to a really powerful takeaway for all of us. McConaughey brings up such a brilliant point here. Think about it. We are obsessed with deconstructing our failures, right? We pick apart every mistake. But why don't we do the same thing for our successes? We almost never apply that same level of detail to figuring out what actually went right. He actually forced himself to keep writing in his journal, even and especially when things were going great. And by doing that, he started to see these clear, repeatable patterns. He found the actual habits that were contributing to his success and his happiness. Things he could always go back to if he started to get off track. And really, that's the big idea here. Happiness. That can be a fleeting emotion, right? It comes and goes. But satisfaction? That's something you can actually build. You can engineer it by figuring out what behaviors genuinely work for you and then repeating them. Which brings us to his final thought, and it's a bit of a curveball. He says he wishes more people were full of themselves, and he doesn't mean arrogant. He means being so full of self-knowledge that you truly own your life. It's about understanding what makes you tick so deeply that the real question isn't whether you'll succeed or fail anymore. The only question left is, are you going to half-ass it